I'd rather not. I'm just trying to catch up here.
I thought the DDA was supposed to be on the agenda for the report.
Eric sent that to us that, Mrs. Scott was gonna be on vacation.
Okay, so they haven't given a report in several months, so can we make sure that either they're on the next agenda, or if not, we have them on the work session, because I know they've been
Is that
doing
August
things.
10th?
Then we have public hearing, second reading on the Summit Chase annexation. Jason?
I'll just keep it short and sweet. Basically, the clubhouse and the adjoining area here has been outside of the city boundaries for several years now. Now they've requested to come back in. It's a four-part application, a land use plan amendment, a rezoning, a CUP, and an annexation, which I believe has to come first. And we've recommended approval with a few conditions as far as licensing and alcohol beverage and things like that.
Questions for Jason?
Chris, there is one non-annexation question that's been raised. I just need to talk to you about that after.
Okay.
And we're good on the name and everything going forward, I saw that.
I got a quick question, Chris. How do you handle, is it an annexation, separate motion, you go on once, or do we need the annexation?
I think we
No,
were talking
you
about
can't.
that earlier, and I think probably the best thing to do is just do one separate.
Usually we do the annexation first, and then if it passes, then we do the rezoning.
How do you rezone this?
Okay, and then we have second reading on the Park Place property, Jason?
Sure, and I'll give a brief overview of it in more detail, then Gary, and of course, questions if you have any. Park Place is, everybody knows where it is, it's on Fars and Scenic. It's a zoning map amendment from RS 180 to general business, land use plan amendment for North Road development area, and GOT right away for retail, approximately 13 acres. We propose 50,000 square foot plus or minus with 9 buildings, 2 driveways, a couple different uses, some restaurants, retail, and medical offices. The future land use map supports the change. We recommended approval on that. They actually improved a lot of pedestrian amenities that were originally absent in the first submitted site plan to make it more walkable. They've completed the sidewalks around the Fars and 124 as well. We recommend approval of the land use amendment. The meat of the report is actually in the zoning map amendment. They've asked to rezone the forest to RS 180 to BG, which corresponds with the land use plan amendment. 9 total buildings, 6 access points, 700 total parking spaces. They completed it, provided a complete traffic analysis that's been reviewed and approved by the city engineer. A landscape and tree plan with over 300 4-inch trees. I think the specimen tree counts went down, but there were specimen trees to recompense. They provided more green space in the second submittal at the request of the planning department, and there's a few variances associated with the landscape and tree plan as well. They're also asking for stormwater clarification. If you remember, the brand, or actually it was the Eastside Village, is up rezoning, prohibited the discharge of stormwater from new developments. This area, the proposed development area, was in the original stormwater basin for that regional detention pond, and we felt like that's enough for them to have vested rights to discharge, and then that condition was not applicable to this development, and we received nothing from the adjoining property owners or their council about if that condition was indeed meant for that development, which we don't believe it was. So there was, I think there were 12 or 13 total variances. The first 3 deal with subdividing the property after it's constructed for individual corporations or LLCs to own their own piece of dirt. We don't have an ordinance organ to do that, so we have to make sure they get it on the front end, which is fine. Still gonna be developed as one, and will just be subdivided later. There will also be master covenants and maintenance covenants put in place to make sure that it's maintained and built as one. There's a reduction in the corner yard setback. Forest Road is treated as a corner, so it's a required 35 feet. They've asked to down to 25 feet to give them a little more room, which is fine. It's consistent with the scenic highway front yard as well. They've asked for some signage allowances to be allowed to have small monument signs for each business, as well as some identification type signage, as you've seen in the packet. We recommend to approve that as long as it's done tastefully and they submit a master signage plan to be reviewed and approved before they get all their signage done. They've asked to be consistent with local developments and have a 6-foot sidewalk with 24-inch beauty strip. That's consistent with most of the businesses around here. We recommend approval. And they also asked to have the required specimen special tree density units reduced from 814 down to 0. We tried to find a compromise. We understand that our ordinance has some flawed language in it that's really stringent, so we tried to be fair and roll it back to the previous ordinance and still uphold some integrity in the form of the precedents that we may set down the road to 215.502 TDUs, which would result in a $215,500 payment. You can see in the attached Arborist report that the applicant submitted as well. Reduction of the 10-foot landscape strip adjacent to Home Depot, we recommended approval. Reduction of a monument sign setback from 15 to 10 feet. Typically, we just do that administratively as long as there's no sightline issues. We recommended approval. And then one relating to the distance between the access drives on 124. We basically yield to Georgia DOT on that one. And number 11, a parking space to exceed 60 units. They were originally over 760, I believe. They've dialed it back and added a lot more green space. So we compromised, met in the middle. Recommend approval. And basically, the applicant is also requesting that the individual landscape islands be adopted as is. We don't have enough information to know if they meet the right size requirements of the ordinance, but we feel like they are they're the right amount. They're just not shaped like they normally are due to the development of the property. There's 14 conditions that we recommended, 13 that staff recommended, and an additional one that was provided by the Planning Commission regarding the tree save area on the northern end of the property, and if it should be removed due to the intersection improvement of the roundabout, that they still be allowed to get credit towards their TDUs for that. And we have no problem.
Questions for Jason? No questions? Jason, is the applicant going to be here tonight?
I believe so. He'll be represented, Mr. DeThomas and Mr. Swooper here, as well as Mr. Lee Tucker will be represented.
And let me back up. Do you know if there's anybody here on the Summit Chase gas station? Anybody here?
I would sure Don would show up something.
I understand.
He is going to be here? Okay, just make sure. Give him a chance. No questions? Anything? Anything? That then brings us to new business. It's resolution 2015-09, appointing the absentee ballot clerk. It's my understanding that Ms. Downs, because of her new job functions, does not wish to serve as an assistant ballot clerk. And Ms. Stone, I thought she had election experience in the past, but she has not, and she does not have any training in that. So the resolution that's in front of us tonight will just be appointing the ballot clerk.
I'm going to make a motion that we postpone that. The election situation, I understand, hasn't met yet. I think we have time for 2 more weeks. I think we just need to postpone that. further discussion.
I'll read the resolution and you can make whatever motion you want at the appropriate time.
Okay.
Then we have mayor's nomination of Anna Harrington to the Arts Commission. This was on the last agenda. I've put it back on tonight. It's my understanding Ms. Harrington did attend the Arts Commission meeting on July 20th, last Monday. It's also my understanding the Art Commission declined to review for hers or Mr. McKinley's application. I still feel that they will be assets to the commission, so I'm going forward with their nominations tonight.
Nothing's changed since the last 2 weeks, Mayor.
Okay.
We're gonna, I think you're gonna get the same result.
Well, they did attend the meeting. I don't know, we do have 2 vacancies, and so I'm going to go forward. I understand what your policy is, but I'm going to move forward. Same with Mr. McKinley. I believe both of them will be an asset. I think we need bodies on that commission to help move some of their projects along, so I'm moving forward with them. That brings us into D, approval of Carousel Industries proposal. Mr. Sanders?
We noticed for quite a while that our communications line item budget was one that we needed to get better control of. And so we started talking to different companies about an audit, a review of all of our bills. And I've got to give a lot of credit to Erica Fleeman, who really dug into this and came up with a highly recommended company, Carousel Industries. They have an awful lot of experience with carriers, and Tina Patno, who provided the numbers that were in your agenda, very, she's a bulldog when it comes to trying to save money. And as you can see, with no cost, no equipment cost, just changing some AT&T lines to Windstream, we were able to find a little over $23,000 in savings. And since then, one thing that we noticed that long distance was not included, they found another $854 in long distance. So over the course of a year, in a 3-year agreement, every year we would save a little over $24,000 in our phone system charges. I think that's pretty significant, and our recommendation is to enter into an agreement, have the mayor enter into agreement with Carousel Industries for the charges as listed here. They'll be in the contract. Chris can review that, and we don't believe there's a downside there. Doesn't affect 911. We stay with AT&T there.
Questions?
Good job, Eric.
Yeah, right.
Will we still get the same coverage, I guess?
Yes, nothing, actually it improves. There are some of this terminology I know is probably hard. When you see POTS lines, believe it or not, that means plain old telephone service. Believe it or not. I mean, this is not, you'd think this industry would be a little more cutting edge than that. But
KISS method.
it is, and they are, when I went to work in 1977, right out of college, we had Essex lines. We lose those Essex lines, and finally. And so, I mean, it's little improvements like that. No equipment cost, no charge. Carousel gets paid by the carriers, and I see no reason why not to accept that.
There's no equipment change, no lines have to be changed, it's all just...
That would be totally, hardware would be totally separate. This is just carrier charges.
Okay, then that brings us to council's nomination of Leroy Banks to the Arts Commission. I did ask the city attorney for an opinion. I put him on the spot by asking for it this afternoon about the council's authority to appoint someone. I don't know if you need more time for that, if you're comfortable giving an opinion now.
Well, I took a look at it. It was a, you'd asked me on the way here, and I had my associate look into it. And the question, as I understood it, was whether or not by virtue of a resolution of the council, could that change the nomination to the commission process that is in the city charter? My initial look at it is that the city has the right to change the city charter, obviously, as long as you're not changing the form of government. But that if you've got a process in the city charter, you cannot change it by a resolution. Accordingly, if you're going to do an appointment, it needs to be through the process that is put forth in the charter by the process there. And theirs are different in the Arts Commission resolution and in the city charter. And I think the city charter also has a provision in it that talks about, not amending it through other processes.
Our charter states that if it's 60 days, the council
Hasn't
can
been a
make
vacancy
that.
for 60 days on the art commission. It occurred June 30th. Ms. Lavelle gave her resignation effective June 30th.
Right, but the Kathy Marsh did her.
If there has been so then that question would be, is if there has been a vacancy for 60 days, then yes, then y'all get to go ahead and do that. The question that was posited to me was, does the process in the resolution trump the process in the charter? The answer is no.
No, the charter states.
Right, so I think, hopefully I've answered both your questions. Right.
And so I would ask then that, it's fine, council's gonna take whatever action they want, but I'll ask the city attorney at a later date to give us an opinion as to the 60-day vacancy and whether that home rule amendment was ever properly advertised or not. I think that's still pending litigation, and y'all's counterclaim in front of Judge Campbell.
No, that's not part of litigation.
It is, and I've got, yeah, you told me that
It's a
several
city
times in
charter.
the past.
It's the citizen.
It's not, it was a home rule change that you made
Into our charter.
into the charter, and whether it was properly advertised or not is part of the counterclaim.
I'm confident of
I mean, if it's something y'all want me to look at, I'll look at it.
Please do, I'm confident.
Sure.
That brings us then to the work session agenda. I had asked the city manager and Chief Whitehead to look into the purchase of a defibrillator for here at City Hall. We've been having more and more events here on the town green and more people coming into City Hall, and I think it would be part of our risk management plan if we had a defibrillator on hand. So I don't know, I know the chief isn't here, I know he had some contacts for that, if you have some reports for those costs.
He was, it's not on the state contract. We can get one from the Red Cross. Lisa is looking at your the vendor that you utilize there. I think it's a good idea. I'd like to go ahead and do that. I think we can take it out of the contingency part of the budget.
I think good idea. My question is training. I mean, we're gonna have to have people trained. Can you
Yes.
No,
I think the new ones now, there's an actual voice that comes out of the machine and tells you exactly what
Oh,
to do.
really?
So-
They're foolproof. I mean, you cannot put it on somebody who's breathing.
Put your thumbs in the wrong place.
I really wish you hadn't said your foolproof. Guys, you could have kept up with it yourself, because I assure you.
But if you buy it from the Red Cross, they'll come in and take care of it.
And to Barbara's point, they are very, almost so easily user-friendly now. If you understand, if you understand the English language and, you can follow commands. And there are options for that, so.
I need that.
So they are, not to coin Butch's phrase, they're almost impossible to mess up, I won't say. But you gotta check them regularly, you gotta make sure the batteries are up, those kind of things you have to make. And they have to be accessible in a certain place in the building, so. I've installed several throughout several companies that I
Did you light up when you did?
I did not touch it.
So if you can have those prices for us, then at the next meeting, we'll put on that agenda. Discussion of emergency call boxes at Briscoe Park. This is something we've talked about during our walkthroughs, and I've had a couple of citizens since then contact me about walking up the park later in the evenings and just not feeling safe, and whether we could put some call boxes. We actually were contacted by a vendor, and received some prices. They're a lot more expensive than I thought. I think it was like $5,000, $5,700. So I don't know if there's any interest in moving forward with that at this point in time. or not?
When I saw this on the agenda, I started thinking about, my only concern in the digital world that we live in, and you know, how many people move from one place to another without their cell phone. I mean, you know, we're pretty much in a cell phone society. We certainly have good reception at the park, and it's almost, it would be redundant, because, I mean,
People
like
that
every
talk to
day.
me are older, and I don't think they necessarily carry their cell phone when they're going to work out, walking the park.
And if
So-
there were an emergency, sometimes getting on your cell phone and dialing something when somebody's coming at you, and if you go and lift the phone
As
up when
opposed to
there's.
running to a phone.
Well, if you were able to get there and knock the phone off, I think it, then it sends
It
it
automatically,
Yeah.
yeah, it doesn't have to dial or anything like that, it automatically.
I mean, I mean, it would be worth looking at, but I think we need to
Do
look
we
at
have any
the.
cameras out there? Or plans? Cameras wouldn't be bad.
Then we'd have to have somebody monitor the camera. If we have it, then we have a responsibility to get
Well, if
something.
we got a police department that has the ability to, I don't know what's
Yeah,
involved
then
in
you,
costs.
you'd have to have somebody watching it all the time.
If there's some case law, if the camera's up and you're not monitoring it, you would assume some responsibility for something happens. Do we wanna try to get other vendors, see if there's different
Get some
prices?
prices, but, you know, I think we have to consider the weight the price against the.
Where in the world do you put them? I mean,
Yeah.
or you gonna put them where an event is gonna happen, I guess. I mean, that's always the,
You got, what, a mile, 2
Logistical
miles
challenge.
of travel, 2 miles, now? 1 mile, 2 miles?
Well, it's not gonna be, it's not 2 miles yet, it's 1.5 right now.
Okay, but it will be, and how far apart do those things go? How far apart do you
Something
put them?
you wanna,
Lisa, could we do this? Could you bring this to the Parks and Rec Board and ask them to maybe look at some vendors and make a recommendation as to where they would think they would be appropriate and come back to us maybe the end of August?
Could you also, would you also mind checking with the county and see how they handle, do they have them on theirs, and if they do, how far apart, and, you know, get an idea of what, if, you know, if we're, if the county's doing something we're not doing, or,
I don't know that I've
They don't
ever
do it.
seen one in a county park.
yeah, not that I know of.
another thing we
But
need
we'll
to
check.
consider.
We'll
yeah.
check.
You may only need them in the darker,
Darker
more
areas.
remote spots on the
Or
trail.
the box put a cell phone.
Yeah.
Just saying.
But it would be better be strong shade. Put on the agenda.
A little silent, one call, that's all.
Make your last call here.
The next item I put on the agenda at the request of former Councilman Zabago is here today, but South Crestview is the road across from the shopping, the Cafe 1711. It's got that big curve in it, and apparently there's been some vehicles, some accidents, and overturned vehicles on that curve. And we inquired of Mr. Sanders about what we could do to maybe straighten that curve. I don't know.
Just put a engineering firm out there to take a look at it and come up with, you know, a safer,
Before we do that, we
Radius.
have the police department do some reports on what's happened there, what kind of reports we have there, how often that is as compared to other similar situations in the city.
Well, and the other question is it a city maintained street or is it a county maintained street?
South Crestview is a city maintained street.
I don't know. Are we sure?
I'm asking.
If you're
Mr.
going toward Loganville, South Crestview on your right, that hook,
Yeah.
we maintain.
Okay. So maybe we get some accident report statistics on it.
There's a
Thank you.
platted subdivision there too.
Yeah, in that corner.
and that property may or may not have changed hands.
Green
And the
Space.
inside of that curve.
Do you think you can have that information to us by the next work session? Put this back on.
Yes.
D, discussion on compensation of election superintendent committee. The code section says that we have to provide for compensation. I know the committee's been meeting and working, but we have not yet, as a body, determined their compensation. So I think we need to start having that discussion.
The only, I found this old list, I think, Phyllis, I sent that to y'all. a while ago, because I knew that had to be looked at. And it's something that, I know you don't have a poll manager yet. Mr. Williams served that role very well in the past.
Not enough.
And I know there's an update on the committee. The committee got together and did not meet at the last time. They, in lieu of the city attorney's opinion that we have to advertise and have an agenda and take minutes, so they delayed that meeting until August the 4th. Phyllis proactively jumped in there and put an ad and agenda together, so they will be able to legally meet on the 4th of August. So that's just kind of where we stand there.
But I know we're kind of jumping to E before we finish with D, but we did get, I saw an email, we did get everybody's certificates for their training. Everybody's good with their training.
Yes.
So to set the committee's compensation, we need to maybe do a resolution, or how would you suggest we go about setting their compensation schedule? Yes.
If I can get back to you, though, probably.
And no one's done a committee before, so we don't have any other cities to contact to see what we want to do as far as compensation amounts, right?
No, we don't.
So the pool manager, which is Mr. Williams, the committee actually is above the pool manager, so we just need to
Right.
be
I would
mindful.
think that maybe some combat pay would be.
And is that an hourly rate that we would set for them? And so would they get paid, these are things we have to think about, would they get paid an hourly rate? Would that just be on election days, or are they gonna get paid for these committee meetings an hourly rate? We need to go back and figure out how many hours they've already spent, or how we're gonna calculate
do it
their pay.
lump
Are we gonna do a
sum.
flat
I would
fee?
just do a flat fee.
Yeah, do a flat fee for training. I know there's a little bit more involved in training this time because they have two of the, so they should have a flat fee for training, which I don't think that will discount compensation, whatever that figure is, and then maybe so much for committee meetings up to the election, then the election itself.
And I think on the advanced voting, Nelson, were you not paid hourly?
We were
Whatever
paid
hours you
hourly.
came in? Is that $10 an hour?
No, the matter, in advance voting, you had three people. You had to have a poll manager or one of the assistants every day. The one that was in charge got $13 an hour, the other two got 11.
And that's for the poll workers and poll manager, right?
No, that was for the early voting.
Right, but the people you had there were poll workers?
Well, you had to have an assistant manager or manager there, and the other two could be clerks. But you had to have one or the other, the poll manager or one of the assistant managers there, one of the three every day.
And so, but I think we have a history of establishing the pay for the poll workers and the poll managers, but we have to set a rate, and if we want to set it the same as what we pay the poll manager, but we have to set what we're going to pay the election superintendents.
Members of the committee.
Members of the committee. In addition to the poll manager and the absentee ballot clerks and poll workers.
Bush, could you give us a recommendation on that for next meeting?
I'll check around.
And then find out maybe, Trish, you get a resolution.
Sure.
Together so we can plug the numbers in and get it.
Yeah, I'll just get a general resolution and then we'll tell us how the numbers will respond.
Right.
Update on the website that was continued from last time.
This is really small. I would send you PDF so you can look at it. This is a general look at what the navigation would be of the new site.
This is called not having to have it. You got a dart?
Wow. 11/17.
He actually posted the paper.
Seems like this should
Maybe you
come
should
with
ask the
magnifying
folks
glass.
I'll have magnifying glass.
Alright, so we'll just wait for an email update.
Yeah.
Update on Wi-Fi for City Hall, Mr. Sanders.
I've got a call in, I'm sorry, I was not here last year. Last week, they rebooted everything, and it came up, but there was not a password established. So Mr. Slaughter with SmartWave didn't get back with me today, and I'll email you on that.
And then once it's up, we'll be doing a press release, and that should be soon.
Yes, yes.
Anything else on Carousel Industries? Then, during the work session of the mayor and city council of Snellville, Georgia, Mayor Couch announced, I'm sorry, skipped over, did you have anything you needed to report?
No.
Okay. During the work session of the mayor and city council of Snellville, Georgia, Mayor Couch announced that